Good morning, Austin New Church. How's everybody doing? Excellent. Excellent. Woo, that was the response for those of you back home. All right, you guys go ahead and stand with us. If this is your first time, we are super glad that you're here. We know it can always be a little weird, a little scary. So hopefully we're not too weird and scary for you.
That's not too scary.
Lord, we love you. We thank you for this time. We thank you for your presence. May our minds be open. May our hearts be soft. In Jesus' name.
Open my eyes, I wanna see you more clearly. Open my ears, wanna hear you speak. Tell me your thoughts, what's on your mind. I'll be your friend, wanna see through your eyes. Open my eyes, wanna see you more clearly. Open my ears, wanna hear you speak. Tell me your thoughts, what's on your mind. I'll be your friend, wanna see through your eyes, wanna see through your eyes, wanna see through your eyes. I'm not in a hurry.
This week, my daughter was doing a report for school, and it was on, she had to choose some countries in the Middle East. So Israel was one of the countries she chose, which I've had the privilege of visiting, and so we were talking about all different things. She had to choose some places that she would want to go. And so I was telling her about the Dead Sea and telling her about Jerusalem and different places, but we started talking about the Jordan River. And so I got to talk to her about Jesus being baptized and all these different things, and it was just a really beautiful conversation. And this song kept coming to my mind as we were talking. So here we go.
Been traveling these wide roads for so long. My heart's been far from you. 10,000 miles gone. Oh, I wanna come to you and give every part of me. But there's blood on my hands and my lips are unclean. In my darkness, I remember Mama's words reoccur to me. Surrender to the good Lord. And wipe your slate clean. Take me to your river. I wanna go. Oh, take me to your river. I wanna go. Dip me in your smooth water. I'm going as a man with many crimes. Come up for air as my sins flow down the Jordan. Ooh, I wanna come here and give every part of me, but there's blood on my hand and my lips are unclean. Take me to your river. I wanna go. Oh, take me to your river. I wanna go.
I wanna go, wanna go, wanna go. I wanna know, wanna know, wanna know. I wanna go, wanna go, wanna go. Wanna know, know, know. Wanna go, wanna go, wanna go. Wanna know, wanna know, wanna know.
Oh, Lord, please let me know.
Wanna go.
Take me to your river. I wanna go. Oh, take me to your river. I wanna go. Oh, take me to your river. I wanna go. Oh, take me to your river. I wanna go.
do that. Hello. All right, that'll work. Hey, welcome. Right. Totally awkward. So thanks for coming out, y'all. It's great. We're having more and more folks that are joining us in this room, and we love it, and it's great. You have the opportunity today to spend the day with us, if you will. So right after service today, we're going to be having, the youth are having their fourth annual, I believe, Turkey Bowl, which is not really basketball, but that's what they're doing. They're having their Turkey Bowl shootout, something or another, where they'll be gathering different teams down here at the basketball court. People are bringing lunches, going out and grabbing a thundercloud and bringing it back and eating, watching people make fools of themselves and win basketball tournaments, that kind of thing. And then immediately after, they're going to Easy Tiger and hanging out there for a bit. Easy Tiger's down here where, what's the name of the place? Used to be Red's Porch, just right down Lamar. A lot of folks will be going down there afterwards. And then this evening, we're having our, is it third? Fourth? I don't know. Open mic night. We're having open mic night here in this room where we've asked, Sam leads the creatives in this space, and they come up and we've had poetry readings, we've had people singing and playing guitar and playing piano and a lot of different things, and they're just sharing their talents with us. And so not only is it a time for them to showcase that, but it's also a time for us as a family to come back in the room, gather socially, listen to it, have a good time. It'll be great. It's good time fun. So that's spend the whole day with ANC if that's what you wish. So we have one of our ministries, segueing into First Love Ministries. We have okay, so we're doing cookies again this year. This is something we've done for about 5 or 6 years now. Every Christmas and Easter, we have some ladies that go into the gentlemen's clubs in Austin, and they take the dancers and the management and the bartenders and whatever, they take them cookies and brownies and sometimes a small gift. We have a way that you can participate with that if you'd like. There's a QR code on the screen. Get out your phone if you want. Snap that and let Katie know that you'd like to bake 16 dozen cookies for that if you'd like. I don't know if she's got like a mass thing going on where she's cooking all together, but she'll have a way that you can drop those off with her. Thanksgiving. So right around the corner, something we've already started thinking about. One of our other partners, Foundation Communities, they have different housing complexes, apartments throughout the city that service veterans and seniors and people with disabilities and stuff like that. There's one literally 400 yards down the road here called Blue Bonnet Studios. And we are partnering with them this year to take them Thanksgiving meals. A way that you could do that is the cost of each meal is $21. We are purchasing the meals from a minority-owned, black-owned business here in town. What's the name of it? Who? Fowler's. Okay, we're purchasing prepared meals, turkey, trimming, everything from Fowler's, and we're going to be delivering those to them. We've committed to 50. So you do the math. That's over $1,000 we've committed to doing. We'd love for you to participate with us. If that's up, $21 a meal, buy a meal for $21, buy 2 meals for $42. I could do the math. You could buy 10 meals for $210 if you want to. But let us know. Go to that QR code, snap that. It'll take you to a PayPal link, and just sign up for however many you'd feel like doing. If you want to do a half a meal, like a happy meal, that would be fine too. Thank you guys, though, for your continued generosity, helping us when we ask for help, directing your love and your resources toward things like this. Also, thanks for giving to your church. We love that you do that. We're grateful for that. We've never been in trouble throughout the whole pandemic. Thank you for your continued generosity and support. We love you guys, and thank you for it. If you got my email this week, here's something. We're phasing out those little info cards in the seat back in front of you. That's why that link was up on the screen. Throw it back up there, Megan. This link right here. Do you have that one? It says welcome. Yep. We're just going to do that. It takes us to a virtual deal that you can sign in. That's how you get our emails. If you got my email this week, you got an announcement that we are gearing back up to reopen 2 services, kids ministry, all that, January 9th, which is the second weekend in January. And for that, we have Miss Stephanie coming up here. who is our children's minister, and just tell us about it. Tell us how excited you are about this.
I cannot contain myself. First off, thank you for bringing your kids to playground time. Like, that has been such a great segue. It's been really good to have some table time and FaceTime with those kiddos. But January 9th, we're going to have the classrooms back. So yay for that. Yeah, I'm super excited. Been waiting for this. At that point, it will be 22 months since we've had kids ministry in the building. So we're ready. We're ready to bring it back. So
what does it mean to be a children's ministry volunteer, in your words?
Great question. Two services a month means we need about 100 volunteers to keep this thing going. Before the pandemic, we had that. We had 100 volunteers plus, actually, some volunteers do a sub list. I have 60.
Okay.
So I need about 40 more people to say yes. Saying yes means once a month, 1 hour. It's not hard. It's not. I have everything ready for you. You show up, love these kids, do the lesson, and once a month. That's it.
So we're not quite ready yet.
Not ready yet.
For 2 services.
No.
So we've kind of toyed with the idea of maybe opening the first service for with kids ministry full, and then the second service, and just kind of see where our volunteer levels are at. But we'd love to be ready to go in January. But what does that take? What does the process look like to be a kids ministry volunteer?
We make sure that everyone is completely background checked, and they go through a process called Safe Gatherings. It's 2 hours of your time for 2 years. So you go through a self-guided webinar, and then you join a 2-hour online webinar, and you're certified for 2 years, which means you can safely help kids. We know you're safe, our parents know you're safe, and that's what it takes. So I have right now 40 people certified, ready to help our kids. The rest of them aren't quite there yet, and then I have some that haven't started. So if you're one of those folks, please do that.
Let us know. And your email's up here. I think we've got Stephanie's email. And I know I said I wasn't going to surprise you with any weird questions. So I'm not. But you mentioned safety, and that's a critical concern for us. And that's why we haven't opened children's ministry up quite yet, because we don't want to give the kids anything in terms of COVID or whatever, and we don't want our volunteers to. So we've just done it safely, and we may be going a little bit longer than most churches have, but we feel very strongly about the safety of both the children and the volunteers. And so just know that going forward in January, that might look like wearing a mask the whole time. And so it might look, hand washing station, all the things. So anyway, thank you, Stephanie. We love you. Thank you. And wait a second. Are you going to do that? You going to go there? You can go to the side. So kids, if you want to go to the playground for the next 30 minutes or so, follow Miss Stephanie on out, and she's going to take you out there. Parents, you'll be able to pick your kids up on the playground after the service immediately. And so we've got a special guest speaker coming to speak to us today, Jason Morris. But first, stand and greet each other. Find somebody you don't know. Give them an elbow bump or a fist bump or whatever. That'd be great. I still like to bust his balls over that. Can you say that on here? I don't know. I'm probably going to get in trouble for that. Don't tell anybody. Guys, hey, thank you guys for coming back. We're doing something a little bit different for you, really, starting this week. This is not going to change. You can always drop in and watch this service live every week. But we've decided that we're going to start capturing just the sermon portion of the deal earlier, and then we'll release that this afternoon. So we're thinking like on Sundays, afternoons, if you missed the service and you just want to catch the sermon part of it, you can watch that 25-minute video. This will still live online, so you can always watch this too, but just know we're toying with some stuff. This isn't going to go away. We're just trying to enhance what we put out there. It'll be able to go on Instagram as well, so that's good, right? Love you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in, and welcome our guest speaker, Jason Morris.
All right. Guest speaker, what's the matter with you? Haven't I trained you better than that, Trey? Hey, you do realize, right, that the entirety of your training to become a kids volunteer is less time than it takes the Longhorns to lose. Yeah, I've been on break, y'all. So we come back swinging when we. Strong hat, Lamar. Strong hat. Yeah, I see what you're thinking there. Better feather though. Mine comes from Mexico City, if you must know. So you got some work to do on your feather game, but we're good. So good morning, all of you. It's so good to be here. I'm going to try not to act like Garth Brooks and scream and yell, although I feel like Garth Brooks inside. That's a good documentary. Y'all should watch that on Netflix. I did last night. Actually, I did. You really? I mean, who was alive in the 90s? I mean, come on, 850,000 people at Central Park. That's something. I mean, anyway. It's good to see you guys. It feels like it's been a super long time, which is exactly what you want vacation to feel like. Super long, right? You want it to extend and feel super restful. And it's been fun to be out of pocket for a while. It's been good to gather thoughts and think some different thoughts and read some unrelated things and just kind of rest and refocus. And it's good to be back. Well, last week I was in the greatest city in the New World, in my opinion, Mexico City. If you haven't been, you must go. And I was there with my second oldest daughter, who is an enormous F1 fan, and we were there to watch Formula One in the Mexican Grand Prix. And to be super clear, she's straight tifosi. That's capital T. Ask Jay Franks if you don't know what Jay Friels if you don't know what that is. She chases the red team, and her favorite driver is Charles Leclerc. He's not my driver. My driver is Sergio Perez. If you don't know who Checo Perez is, he is Mexico's favorite son, and he took a third podium position for the first time in Formula One history, and about 30 million people were in party mode all day. It was the most unbelievable thing to experience. 30 million plus two, Taylor and I. It was an exceptional experience. Those of you guys who watch it at Circuit of the Americas here across town, they do it well in Mexico City. 400,000 aficionados show up, and everything is thought through to the nth degree. I've been to the Olympics, and I've never seen an organized event like this. Not even a service at Austin New Church on a Sunday morning is quite disorganized. So anyway, it was an enormous privilege to travel with my child. She and I share so many things, and it was just really, really fun. So today, we sit exactly 2 weeks away from the beginning of Advent, and if that's a new concept to you, you can Google that. It's the beginning of it's actually the beginning of the church year, and I'll ease us back into that in time. But right now, we're still sorting through the memories of Mark as he recorded them. The gospel writer Mark, not Mark the pianist or Mark the poet. And we're preparing our hearts to get ready to make room again for the birth of God in Christ. And I designed that sentence exactly that way because that's the size of that idea. But today, the lectionary directs our attention to a little story right at the transition between Jesus' time, his activities in the city of David in Jerusalem, and something that scholars have come to call the Olivet Discourses. Meaning, there's a point when Jesus leaves the city of Jerusalem for his own safety, for his own well-being, and he takes up a position on an opposite hill called the Mount of Olives, hence the name the Olivet Discourses. And he puts some finishing touches on his teaching ministry. He clarifies some misunderstandings. And so let's read that. It comes to us from the book of Mark, chapter 13. Remember, Mark wrote first. Mark pulled entirely from memory. Matthew, Luke, and John were spin-offs of a couple of other texts plus what Mark wrote. But this is how Mark remembers it. This might be familiar to you. Verse 1, chapter 13. It reads this way. As he came out of the temple, one of his disciples said to him, "Look, teacher, what large stones and large buildings." And I don't know why I think of Little Red Riding Hood right there. What large teeth you have. Anybody else? "Look, teacher, what large stones and what large buildings." And then Jesus asked him, "Do you see these great buildings? Not one stone will be left here upon another. All will be thrown down." When he was sitting on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, Peter, James, John, and Andrew, his closest circle, asked him privately, "Tell us, when will this be? And what will be the sign that all these things are about to be accomplished?" And then Jesus began to say to them, "Beware that no one leads you astray." I love how he doesn't answer the question. "Beware that no one leads you astray. Many will come in my name and say, 'I am he,' and they will lead many astray. And when you hear of wars and rumors of wars, do not be alarmed. This must take place, but the end is still to come." Verse 8, "For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in various places. There will be famines. This is but the beginning of birth pangs." And before you get super alarmed at all that heavy-duty stuff in verse 8, that's pretty much every day on earth. Nations fighting against nations, earthquakes. If you've never lived along the Pacific Rim or any of the capitals of the New World, then you may not know about earthquakes. But famines are a constant thing. Anyhow, Jesus goes totally apocalyptic at the simple question about the temple. Now, just to review very, very briefly, Jesus rode into the city on the back of a donkey earlier in this very same week that we're watching be wrapped up right now. And we called this his triumphal entry. But whatever triumphal qualities this little bit of public theater had, it could have only been to the eyes of poets and philosophers, because there's nothing terribly triumphal about riding in the back of a city on a donkey. I said a few weeks ago on a thing we shot for the fifth Sunday that Jesus was no prophet and he was also no priest. But even those who figured that out early on still hoped that he might yet be a king. But given the way he rode into the holy city that day on an untrained beast of burden, fawned by crowds of children and waving tree branches, any attentive observer would have been able to see this was no king. At best, this was some kind of strange street parody. Anyway, he managed to infuriate nearly everyone that week. Sounds like an average week in the life of Trey. He managed to anger everyone in town by the end of the week. Some of you are just getting that. Man, you're slow today. You remember the story. He flips some tables right after he stops off to see if a fig tree might help him with his groaning belly. We don't actually know everything that Jesus did that fateful week. Mark wrote down what he thought we needed to know, or all that he could remember at any rate. The cursing of a poor fig tree, some public questioning about Jesus' authority, some significant rumbles over the subject of the resurrection of the dead. And then we have Jesus and his little band of hopers heading back out of town. And this is the conversation we have preserved in our text today. Leaving town disappointed, maybe even a bit shocked, almost certainly looking over their shoulders to see if they might be followed, the disciples point out one thing they probably thought that everyone could still agree on: the beauty and the permanence of the temple. So Jesus, the wisdom teacher that he is, finding ways to connect all things to whatever discourse he feels like he wants to have at the moment, juggles in the subject of the temple itself. No matter what the disciples threw him, he could juggle that too. He just answers the questions he wants to answer. And as per usual, the disciples think that they're talking about one thing, but in subsequent conversations, also preserved in Mark, becomes clear that Jesus is talking about something else entirely, which becomes clear to the reader in a subsequent conversation held in private. Now, Mark wasn't listed among the few people privy to that private clarification, so I wonder how he knew the details, but we won't bother ourselves with that this morning. There was a reason they were in the city that week, and there was also a very good reason why they left when they did. Now, here's what I imagine was going on behind the scenes. That's the work of biblical study. I think the circle of friends that followed Jesus around obviously had high hopes for his future, and high hopes for their role in his future. Why else would they quit their day jobs and set everything aside to follow him around? Well, they did it to matter, to have an impact, obviously. So a lot was riding on Jesus' performance in front of the crowds that week. And I'm guessing it hadn't gone as his friends had hoped, because they ended up leaving somewhat abruptly while the crowd wasn't looking, which wasn't the way to build a massive following. It was actually the opposite. What do we do when we're disappointed? What do we do when the car that we've been chasing for 50 laps suddenly pulls away, Mark, and there's nothing left in the pedal to chase it? What do? We pit. We punt. We change the subject, which often looks like reaching for a safe conversation about a subject that we think everyone can agree on. Do you do that? I know I do. That's called Thanksgiving. You see, the truth about the traveling school of discipleship that Jesus assembled and led was that the primary curriculum seemed to be an unbroken thread of major disappointments. So these folks, after a week's worth of letdowns, as they're leaving town, bring up something they think, anything they think that they could all still agree on. I think they make a nice effort here. This is, however, a very Jerusalem-specific conversation. If this was Austinites talking, the subject would probably be something different, like how good our music is or how good our food is or how much better Austin is than Houston or Dallas, something we can all agree on. That's a safe conversation in Austin. Some of you are like, mm-mm. But in Jerusalem, the one unrisky topic about which everyone was probably in agreement, at least if they were Jewish, was how beautiful and permanent the temple was. It stood solidly at the center of everything. Surely Jesus could not disagree on this. It probably sounded something like this. Hey, Jesus, so we know you aren't going to stop causing troubles. That's clear. You're not going to stop picking fights and rejecting the crowd's wonderful invitation to become their king. At least we can all agree on how amazing our history is. I mean, look at the massive temple. Even if our present is weird and our future is uncertain, at least we can all agree that our past was glorious. But they didn't quite get the reaction they were crossing their fingers for that day. So, of course, it demanded a clarifying conversation with Jesus later in private. Now, the brave souls in the traveling entourage of this promising new voice on the wisdom scene had yet another major disappointment to sort through. As I said, in the world of Jesus, discipleship consisted of one disappointment after another. So the transitional conversation that Jesus has with his followers leaving the city for the very last time as a free man was about the one untouchable thing at the center of it all, God's physical address on earth. Now, don't necessarily think of their temple like we do of our church, friends. It's not the same thing. This grand edifice was more than a place where folks would gather on weekends to drink crummy coffee in styrofoam cups. That's what we think of when we think of church. No. This was the precise location where God and humanity were supposed to interact, overlap, engage, be in relationship. If this building were to be torn down, there would be nothing left at the center of Jewish devotion. It wasn't easy being slaves of Rome. There was very little dignity and pride in paying monstrous tributes to fund the conquests of a maniacal emperor, but at least the Jews still had their temple. As long as that stood, hope remained, which is why this little conversation between Jesus and his friends matters so much. Now imagine with me, if you're able, the shock. Jesus said a lot of alarming things. He said them often, but this apocalyptic prediction pushed into whole new domains for his followers. He wasn't pruning branches of their religious and national cosmology here. He was pulling at the ancient root of the entire system itself. I think Jesus knew he would never survive this frontal assault on the temple. This would cost him his life. He was no fool, and yet he went there anyway. Now, maybe you grew up thinking that Jesus had to die because God was mad. Perhaps you were taught that God had to murder part of God's self so that God could relearn how to love the rest of God's self. Maybe that narrative still works for you. It no longer works for me. I think people pay with their lives when they question the center and the power and the identity of things. I think they pay for their lives, and I think our history tells that story. This is bigger than just a discourse about the physical temple in Jerusalem, you see. It's about physicality in general, about the nature of the cosmos and where God can be located. The center is moving, you guys, or maybe a better way to say this would be human awareness of where God can always be found is evolving and fast. Think of it. The shocking claim beneath this discourse is simple. Really, it's simple, yet it's very astonishing. Jesus is claiming universal locatability of the divine. Anywhere bodies are, God is. Do you see that? Think that through all the way to the end. And ask yourself this: what lies at the center now? And who gets to regulate access to God now? Now, I will admit this is a big idea, one that takes time to germinate. All humans in all places from all cosmological systems would eventually discover the almost unbearable proximity of the divine spirit that animates it all to the material world. They would all find it in their own way, but that took most people's thousands of generations to embrace. Jesus is now pulling on simple people really quickly, and he's pulling hard. Now, to be clear, I'm leaning heavily on Paul's interpretation of this discourse that Mark preserves. Our passage only actually says that Jesus announced the ensuing destruction of the physical temple, which actually was destroyed by the time Mark wrote down this story. But the traditional read that the faithful have always cherished on this little passage was that Jesus was referring to his body that would be raised again in 3 days. Imagine this message. Don't hang on to this building as the center of meaning. Forget the temple, y'all. It's no longer essential. God's new address is your body. Essentially, Jesus says, this will fall and still you will be well. This will crumble like my broken physical body and still I will rise. All things do. It's how it actually works. Can you imagine the moment the disciples just tried to bring up something simple? Can you feel that shift, I wonder? His friends didn't get it, but they weren't idiots. They were people of their time, not unlike us. And Jesus is proposing a whole new way of seeing the world. This is how he does, friends. This is who he is. He questions the center. He always goes for the core. He calls our attention to the assumptions that we don't even think about. They're just there. They always have been. You know, it's interesting. I'm not an expert in the intricacies of Jewish cosmology. I was raised a Christian with a Jewish text, but mostly interpreted to me by white Western men, like most of you. But I do know something that stands at the core assumptions behind the temple system. It goes a little bit like this. We humans are lost and broken and dirty and unreliable and evil to the core, so we need to cleanse and purify ourselves before approaching the presence of God because God is ashamed of us and our choices, our nature, the urges of our flesh, the functions of our body, our proclivities, and lo, the entire world we inhabit. So much so that God can't even look at us without being angry. Be honest. Isn't this the basic stone upon stone algorithm that drives everything most of us have ever known about faith and religion? I'm certain there's dozens of ways to interpret and apply this text today. I'm just choosing the one that's revealing more of me to myself this week. You see, I used to think that everything was punishment, that everything was personal, because I was irreparably damaged and whatever wrong between me and God and the world must be 100% my fault. That's what I've always thought. In which case, the temple makes perfect sense. If the foundational assumption is original sin and that God is angry at our humanity, then you need a pretty place to put him, somewhere safe. You don't dare take home a God like this. He's way too dangerous. God as they knew him was not to be trifled with. You don't just walk up and start a conversation. But what are we to do, friends? The gospel now says that the new temple, that new place of encounter with God, the new location of the presence and vitality of the divine in the world is our very own body. Oh, church, everything we ever knew is undone if this is true. At the center of my approach to life and faith and relationships and spirituality and happiness and love is this single idea. I wonder if it sounds familiar to you. I have to work to be wanted because I'm unclean. I have to earn God's love and attention, and I have to keep it by being good and getting better all the time, by believing and doing all the right things. Oh, does that sound vaguely familiar? Scary gods need stone temples. You mustn't get too close, unless that way of seeing the world is actually what Jesus is toppling. You might say, remind me, preacher, what was the final lesson before leaving the city of David? Oh, just that God was always as close as our very own bodies. That's true for all people, by the way, and that it was never our job to alleviate God's anger. All things that fall will rise again, bodies as well as buildings. This is, after all, the central claim of Jesus' message. Knock down these walls and altars and see what rises in their place. A D-centered devotion, the awareness that God approves of people and meets them inside themselves, wherever they are, whoever they are. What a message. Temples, bodies, they're not that dissimilar after all. The body is the stage where eternity and time now dance. The human body, with all her chaos and beauty, is the canvas upon which heaven and earth paint with vivid colors, both past, present, and future. If we still see Jesus as exclusive to our culture, as proprietary to our religious cosmology, as our friend, the hater of our enemies, then we lose now. He just moved the center. Our temple has fallen. Divine presence has always been universally accessible, universally available. Today's passage is just a moment frozen in time, but it's a big one. These simple folks like us were just trying to keep their place in his entourage, but suddenly it got significantly harder, didn't it? You see, there's no more sacrifices or burnt offerings, no more need for priests or religious professionals, no more obligation to do the work there in Jerusalem, no more obsession with cleanliness or ceremonial purity. In fact, there's no more purity at all. It's all been decided. You are loved. You are fully seen and affirmed and welcomed right here. There is now only God who can be found right here. And if all of that old language is not connected to you, if you feel culturally distant and think it's old, arcane language, let's try this. When we peel away the way we do worship and our missional thinking and our service to the poor, when we strip away our denominational identity, our leadership philosophy, and our commitment to justice, when all of it is burned to the ground and the core is revealed, if it is only about performance and anxiety, trying to earn what we think we don't have access to because we are human and weak and addicted and confused, then that, dear friends, is exactly what must die now. There is now only love. It's all been decided. There is only God who can be found right here in our bodies. This final thought as we go our ways today. It's a terrifying thing to come to the natural end of one's ability to conjure God's blessings and approval. It's a terrifying thing to realize that you and God have always actually shared the same address. What falls away with the temple stones? Our crutch. The complex system we used to rely on to gain what we've actually always had, God's love, God's acceptance, God's affirmation. It's time to let go of all spiritual systems and religious technologies that feed our anxiety and sense of unworthiness. It's all been decided, friends. You might ask, well, then what holds the center now, preacher? Just that your body is the way home? That your body is where God can be engaged? That God already lives comfortably right there? If you can believe that. Oh, I pray that you can, dear friend. I pray that we will. Pray with me. Heavenly Father, remove from us now the fear that relies on distance from you. Help us to engage you as we are able, as we've always been able, right here in the physicality of our lives. And whatever help we might need to own this truth and to welcome this inside our lives at this point, we would just simply receive the reminder that we've been encouraged to do, which is to eat the broken bread and drink the poured out blood for us. We just take a moment now to settle our hearts around this truth. I would invite you, if you're able, to join me on your feet as we prepare our heart for communion. Sometimes people ask, why do you do this every week? Well, because we've been told this is what we do. Not by the bishop. Jesus said, do this every time you gather, long before the bishop did. And so we do, and it's this simple truth, and it's always it's always somewhat unnerving. It's always somewhat undoing of the inner complexities of fear related to God when he just reminds us that this thing you put into your mouth and you eliminate and you derive energy from it as it derives energy from the soil, as the soil derives energy from the sun. It just reminds us of the cycle and in the exchange, and that is exactly how near God is to us. And so we remember the night when Jesus gathered his friends. It was just about to happen in Jerusalem. It was going to get gory. And he lifts bread to heaven and he says, this is my body, and if you can't eat this, then you don't understand the simplicity of what I'm proposing. And then he offers scandal upon insult by lifting the cup and says, this wine is my blood. This is the new agreement between us. And so we celebrate that. And so around the building, at the base of these beautiful stained windows, installed at some point in the 80s or 70s, I can't remember, there's a basket with a little container of bread and juice. And so during the next song, we would invite you to find your way to one of those baskets, find your way back to your seat. It's so simple. It goes as fast as a thought occurs to our mind, but it's as profound as anything we do as believers. And so my encouragement would be that you would do that and open your heart to that exchange between you and everything around you, which is an exchange between you and God. And so pray with me as we've been instructed. At one point, the disciples of Jesus said, so then how should we pray? Jesus says, don't pray in public and don't use big voices. And they're like, well, then how shall we do it? And he proposes these words, which are good enough for me. Pray with me. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation. Deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, and glory forever.
is God. Oh, shout it. Go on and scream it from the mountains. Go on and tell it to the masses that He is God.
I was down in the valley before love came and grabbed me. Never thought I'd see the sun again. Without no hesitation, you became my resurrection. All the light that came shining in, and I got beauty for ashes. I got joy for mourning. I got praise for heaviness. Love is a miracle. I got a beauty for ashes. I got joy for mourning. I got praise for heaviness. Love is a miracle. This is more than religion. Glad I made my decision. Hope reversed the curse I was walking in. Now I'm dancing out my grave clothes. Where you lead me, I will follow. You gave light that the darkness can't comprehend. I got beauty for ashes. I got joy for mourning. I got praise for heaviness. Love is a miracle. I got beauty for ashes. I got joy for mourning. Got praise for heaviness. Love is a miracle.
Remember when my heart says, I will never forget that morning. You were singing over me, singing, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
I got to write the benediction for today, so we'll see what happens here. If you are certain of everything, Jesus has a word for you. If you are uncertain of everything, Jesus usually has a more comforting word for you. If you think yourself the center of the universe, Jesus will bring up the eternal. But if you yourself feel insignificant, he will reign in the cosmos just to give you life, a spark of the divine indwelling. No matter what you've been told, God is not otherwhere, a separated being on a throne that makes us tremble. God is here in this place and here in us. Go in peace today.